I've been playing a lot of Escape from Tarkov lately, and it's made me realize that recently my favorite games have all had a high skill ceiling, and in the case of Tarkov, an extremely high skill floor. Skill floors and skill ceilings are basically what makes up difficulty. I've seen this flipped around a few times, so I just want to clarify what it means to me. A game or hero with a high skill floor means that the barrier to entry is high. Skill ceiling is how effective a hero or person is at a game if they're playing perfectly. Normally, the higher the skill floor, the higher the skill ceiling. The harder it is to play a hero, the more powerful they are when they're actually played well. There's also a skill curve, where the longer you play, the better you get. To be effective in a high skill floor game with a high skill floor character, you need to invest a lot of time and effort to be good enough to make a difference. But if you get good, you can basically become overpowered. So good that the difference you make could turn an entire game or match around. In some cases, though, the skill curve is so steep in the beginning that it's more like a cliff or a wall. Let's look at a game like Overwatch, since each hero in the game can fit into different levels of skill required. A hero like Mercy can make an impact in the game just by existing. Keep the healing up and you're helping. Meanwhile, a support hero like Ana needs to hit shots just to heal, and the only way to heal herself is to waste a very impactful cooldown. The impact that a good Ana can have is way higher than a good Mercy, but a new player playing Ana will be more of a hindrance to the team because it's harder to be effective on her. Overwatch has also had problems in the past with low skill floor heroes being too strong and being boring to play or watch. A hero like Moira can deal insane amounts of damage and do insane amounts of healing without having to aim, and is hard to punish because of her ability to dodge. Now, there are entire games that can be looked at through this lens, or even just changes that have come to games over time. Comparing some RPGs from their first iteration to their latest really reinforces some of the themes of catering to new audiences by lowering the skill floor. Take World of Warcraft, for example. I'd played some retail WoW in the past, during free weekends or after they changed the game to be free to play. But the game didn't really hook me in. Much like Skyrim, it felt like I was just going to the waypoint given to me, killing some enemies, and then going back to finish a quest. Last year, when World of Warcraft Classic released, though, I gave it another shot, and the difference was mind-boggling. Just to perform a quest, I had to read the quest log, look for names of NPCs, look for location names, and then look for the direction to head from those locations. I got really good at reading the quest log and looking for the information that I needed, which would normally be highlighted in newer games. I started to recognize the locations of the starting area and even the NPC names. The learning curve was steep, but the reward was just as great. I didn't need to rely on a map anymore, and that made me faster at performing quests. I was the one becoming more efficient, not my character. This is the reason that my last few obsessions have been Crash Team Racing, Valorant, and now Tarkov. The skill floor varies, CTR being the lowest and Tarkov having the highest, but the skill ceilings in all three is ridiculously high. Different timings and mechanical abilities need to be achieved for all three, but they all have this air of arrogance, where you have to figure out how to get to the next level. They don't respect your time, but you have to respect them. With Crash Team Racing, the drifting was easy enough to wrap my head around, but after a few weeks of playing, I found out there was something called the Blue Flame, where you need to have boost reserves when you hit specific big jumps, and then you need to constantly be drifting to keep the Blue Flame going. If you hit a wall or run out of boost, it goes away. This Blue Flame means that you're going much faster than originally, so the skill ceiling is so high that beginning players won't even see this, let alone try to master it. Valorant is a little more straightforward. Some agents are easier to use, like Brimstone, whose smokes can be dropped from an aerial map. Viper, on the other hand, has to line up her throws for her abilities, so cutting off sightlines is a little bit harder, but her smokes run on a resource which can be enabled and disabled to gain it back. The skill floor with her is high, since it's harder to cut off sightlines, but you can completely shut down advantageous sights for the enemy by learning those lineups for abilities. Often we get to Tarkov, and holy shit, I hated this game for the first week after I bought it. If ever there was a skill cliff, this would be it. After nothing but deaths, I finally went on Reddit and started reading about the game. Read some tips, learned a little bit about the game's mechanics, like the hideouts, scavs, dealers, and how to actually escape from Tarkov. With this information, and after a few hours, I was able to get my first successful extraction, and I've been riding that high ever since. For context, the best way I can describe Tarkov is a first-person shooter roguelike with some MMO mechanics. I've seen a few people compare this game to a battle royale, but that's not really a great comparison, since winning isn't dependent on being the last alive, but on extracting with any loot you've found. Killing enemies helps with that, but if you go in, loot a few things, and find something valuable, running to the exit is a legitimate strategy. I won't go into every aspect of Tarkov's high skill floor, but just getting my head around the guns, health system, loot system, stash management, dealers, maps, extractions, found in raid items, and the hideout was daunting. I still feel like I don't know everything, and I think it'll take hundreds of hours of playtime until I get to the point where I can comfortably go into a raid and not get an adrenaline rush from running into other players. As an adult, I don't get much time to play games, so games with high skill floors were almost always a no-go for me. My thought was, if I can't jump in and have a good time, then it's just not worth the investment, whether time or money. That was certainly the case for Final Fantasy X and Red Dead Redemption 2. I loved those games, but the gameplay wasn't hard. I jumped in and was already good at those games. I didn't get near the skill ceiling for sure, but the skill floor was low enough for me to enjoy my time with little to no previous experience in those games. But games with a high skill floor, they hit differently. Beating time trials in CTR, getting an ace in Valorant, or successfully extracting with a full backpack in Tarkov. Those moments of joy are almost unparalleled, but that comes with the time investment in those games. When you finally master an aspect of a video game or a character, when you feel like you've moved to the next level, when you see your mechanical improvements as actual results, that's one of the reasons I love video games, and I think that's the reason I've been gravitating towards these games in particular lately.